Hello and welcome to another episode of Twice as Lively with Ken Heckenlively. That would be me, your host, as always, with my cup of Pete's coffee. The title of today's episode, The Benefits and Drawbacks of Resilience. And you're going to want to know, how can I tie together fighting Congressman Eric Swalwell and Presidents Bill Clinton and Donald Trump? That's right. It's going to be a little bit off color today, so I'm just warning you that there might be some colorful language used in this broadcast. So hopefully you have your beverage of choice. It is approximately 3 o'clock on the West Coast, which means if you're on the East Coast, it's 6 o'clock. And if your beverage of choice has alcohol in it, that's socially acceptable. So here on the West Coast, we still have a couple hours until it's okay to have alcohol. So that is why I have my Pete's coffee, my usual cafe Americano with a little bit of room for cream and honey, because we need a little bit of sugar with our caffeine. Get ready for that simultaneous sip. Here we go. Ah, so good, so good. All right, let's talk about resilience. Resilience means that ability to bounce back from things not going the way you think they should. And so many of us think about it in our own lives, but when we observe it in other people's lives, we may not draw the correct conclusions. So I want to share a little story about how I drew the incorrect conclusion about what actually happened. So I've mentioned before, my trainer, Eddie Silky Smooth Abasolo, had a fight about 2 weeks ago now. Is it 3 weeks? Might be 3 weeks. So he had this fight, and I went there to the fights up in Sacramento with my brother and my nephew, and it was a great fight. And my trainer lost in a split decision. It was 5 rounds. I thought he did pretty good, but one of the things I didn't notice, and I only found out after I got back together with my trainer, is that a minute into the first round, he received a terrible gash to his shin. I mean, this thing was like 3 or 4 inches long. It's a terrible place to get a cut. So basically, during the fight, he was bleeding like crazy. Now, I think that affected the outcome. And when I talked to him about it later, he had said that he think it may have affected him more than he thought, and he was probably protecting himself. And the fight may have gone differently if he hadn't gotten that gash. But, you can never tell. And he recalled how that had happened to another fighter against him, and that fighter had lost. And so, I was thinking that Eddie would be all upset about it, but he was really upbeat and optimistic in a way that I hadn't expected. And so he told me what happened after the fight, which was that gash had to be taken care of. He spent that night in the ER until about 4:30, because they didn't quite know if they should staple it or they should sew it up. They eventually decided, after stapling it, that they really should have sewn it up. And so they sewed it up. About 2 nights later, Eddie was feeling very woozy, and it turned out that they had not properly disinfected the wound. So he had an infection. He had to have some antibiotics. The first round of antibiotics they gave him, he was allergic to. So really kind of a an unexpected amount of recovery from that fight. And so, I would have expected Eddie to be kind of worked up about it, but he wasn't. In fact, if anything, he was more optimistic than ever. And so I questioned him about how he could have such a positive attitude after suffering that loss in the fight. And he said, well, you're in a fight and you're going to win or you're going to lose. But when I look back on my life, it's not how I responded to victories that really matters. It matters how I responded when I had setbacks, when I had defeats. And so one of the tricks that Eddie told me that he had is that he thinks back over his life, thinks back on successes and setbacks, and says to himself, how would I have been different if I gave up after that setback? And so then he recounted to me all the experiences he's been able to have as a result of being in fighting. And he said, Kent, if I had never, if I'd given up, when things got hard, then, I never would have been asked to teach in Nicaragua. I never would have been asked to do things like fight in Thailand, which he's done several times. And he's really been able to go all over the United States and the world because he's just somebody who doesn't give up. And I thought, wow, that's a really great example of resilience, meaning that if you want to do something, go do it. You're either going to succeed or you're going to fail. And if you succeed, okay, that's great. But if you fail, well, hopefully you come back stronger. Hopefully you just, take inventory of what you did and say to yourself, okay, maybe I need to do it a little bit differently. And that's exactly what he was doing. And hearing that from Eddie was really important to me because on the day I heard that, I was having sort of a bad day. And so I was having something of a bad day because I feel like I'm struggling. So I've got this new book out. It is behind me there. This Never Happened, A Call Girl in DC, which has been getting some really great reviews. In fact, we did a giveaway on Goodreads, and something like 5,700 people signed up to get one of the 10 free copies. So that was great and showed a lot of interest in it. But today I sent out those 10 copies. But I haven't gotten a lot of reviews yet. The reviews that I've gotten from regular readers, not some review service that I paid, have been kind of paltry. And so I was feeling sort of down about that. And I was thinking about how some people have sometimes said to me, well, Kent, people aren't buying books the way they used to. And so as I was getting ready for my session with Eddie, all these thoughts were going through my mind as I'm suiting up. I'm going, God damn it. Are people buying books these days? Is everybody just on their goddamn phones and they're doing TikTok and Twitter and Instagram? And, we've really, as a society, given up the life of the mind and the life of book reading. And so I'm having all these negative thoughts go through my mind, right? And so, I always play this little game with God, which is like, okay, God, I don't really know the answer, but I'm going to pose the question pretty strongly to you, God. And so I'm just like thinking and praying and saying to God, why aren't people reading books these days, God? Send me a sign that I'm wrong. So literally, I walk out to the fighting ring, and there's this area where there's a raised fighting ring and then some mats. And leaning up against the ring is a dad who's watching his kid in one of these classes, and self-defense classes. And what does he do? He's reading a book. And I said to myself, really, God? I was asking you, are people reading books anymore? And what do you show me within 30 seconds of me asking that question? You show me a dude leaning against a fighting ring reading a book. And so I felt like it was a little bit of a sign from God that God was telling me, shut up, Kent. Just get to work. Write your books. Your books will find where they're supposed to go. And that was kind of interesting in my session with Eddie, because I was talking about that. And, what's great about working out with a trainer who's also a dude is you get to have dude talk. And dude talk is very important. And so Eddie has just this great philosophy of life. And he said, Kent, what's meant to find you will find you. And what isn't meant to be yours never will be. So don't be thinking too much about all those things that you want that you haven't yet received, because you're either going to get them or you're not. And you have little control over that, or probably no control over that. So that was something kind of funny. And I was like, okay, all right, God, thank you for pulling me out of the doldrums. And so after my session with Eddie, I usually go for a sauna for about 20, 25 minutes. And so I finish up the sauna and, take my shower. And so there I am getting dressed. And there's this young guy in the locker room. And he's kind of giving me that look that after 20 years as a teacher, I've come to expect, which is he's looking at me. He's a grown man, but he's looking at me and he's saying to himself, is that Mr. Heckenlively? And I've got pretty good genetics, so I kind of look the same. My dad had good genetics. Everybody always said he looked much younger than he was. And so there yesterday in the locker room, this guy is looking at me as I'm getting dressed, and he kind of comes a little closer and he goes, are you Mr. Heckenlively? I said, yeah. Were you one of my students? He goes, yeah, I was your student in 2015. My name's Mustafa. You probably don't remember me. And I'm like, oh, well, I've had a lot of students, and that's great. How you doing, Mustafa? And, where are you at? And he's like, oh, I'm at San Jose State. And, I'm in information technology. And I said, oh, that's great. And, what I usually do is I say, well, I hope you enjoyed being in my class. I hope it was a good experience. I always try to make it a good experience. Did you enjoy my class? And it's like, oh, yeah, you were so fun. I really loved your class. And, that's the kind of thing I get and I generally like. And, then we just had this kind of wonderful 15-minute conversation about life and, what he was doing, what I was doing. I told him that I'd recently retired and I was writing books and starting a podcast. And he's like, oh, I want to sign up for your podcast. I want to listen to it. And I'm like, okay, great. So Mustafa may be my newest subscriber. So welcome, Mustafa. And, it was a wonderful thing. And it just made me feel good about the 20 years I spent teaching. And, everybody wonders if their life matters at all and why they do things, because so often we don't really understand or appreciate whether we're making any difference whatsoever. And so I really kind of had just a nice day that I just left myself open to saying, okay, God, show me if my life matters. Show me if anything that I've done has really been important. And so it was really nice to have all of that, and just to think about, the changes in my life. And um, I kind of don't like change, but not, but change is inevitable, so embrace it. So uh, from going to that, then my day was kind of interesting, because speaking of change, one of the things that we have recently discovered is that my daughter, who has severe autism and seizures, also seems to have a very serious mold problem, which may be affecting her seizures and some of the biomedical interventions we're attempting on her. But then, of course, what we did was we uh, did a mold test on our house. We found that our house has mold, specifically in the heating and air conditioning system, and in the attic, and in the crawl space. And so we're going to have to do some pretty serious mold remediation. We're probably going to be out of our house for anywhere from 3 to 6 months. So it's a big problem. And, how do you rent a place for 3 to 6 months? Well, again, you just have to keep pushing on. You just have to be resilient. You can't just say to yourself, okay, life sucks. I've been defeated. I don't know what to do. So when I got home from my very uplifting session with Eddie, my wife was saying, "Hey, honey, I found a couple places that might rent to us, and they're fairly close to us, and you might want to take a look at them." And we still had a little bit of time till our daughter came home, so one of the places was a mile and a half away. And I said, "Honey, why don't we just jump in the car and go check this place out?" And she says, "Really? We can just go check it out?" I said, yeah, let's just go check it out. And so we drive over there, and lo and behold, the owner has the garage open. He's doing some cleaning. And so I said, "Hey, honey, let's go talk to him." And so she's like, no, 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 let's not talk to him. I said, "Oh, come on. What's he going to do? Is he going to bite? He wants to rent his place. We may want to rent it. Let's go talk to him." And so I get out of the car, and she comes behind me, and I introduce myself to the man, and my wife introduces herself, and we get into this lovely 20, 30-minute conversation. And he invites us in and shows us the place, and we talk all about it. And, you know, to make a long story short, he'd love to have us as tenants. Now, I'm not sure if we're going to go to that place, because we talked with the uh, uh, one of the companies that were looking to do the remediation, and it might only take 3 or 4 months. So I'm not sure how long we're going to need the place. They wanted a significantly longer rental period, but it just goes to show that you shouldn't just sit around feeling sorry for yourself and your problems. You may be able to solve them much quicker than you think you can. And so um, we still have a lot of things to figure out about how we're going to get our house all clean, how we're going to have a place to stay for a couple months. And then we can't start treating our daughter until the remediation is done. So we're still looking at probably 4 to 5 months until we can really figure out whether this is going to help my daughter with the problems. But, we have a plan. So you never know how it's going to go. And what was also really interesting is we've been investigating what kind of an effect a mold infection can have on your cognition and development and all those sorts of things. And what was really interesting was when we're talking to that couple who have the rental house, and we mentioned that our daughter had this issue, she talked about a number of mold problems that she was familiar with. Things like mold causing what appeared to be Alzheimer's in somebody, and then the people get the mold taken care of, and the Alzheimer's-like problems seem to go away. And I've heard a number of stories like that. Now, I don't know how legitimate those stories are, but one of my principles is if I hear a similar story from lots of people, I tend to believe it. So, since I'm hearing that mold can really do some serious shit to people, I'm really kind of excited that after 28 years of trying to solve my daughter's problems, we might have a pretty good uh, therapy that might significantly improve her life. And, it was really interesting. My daughter does uh, spelling to communicate. And she wrote a poem today and just expressed how elated she was to be alive. And, it just kind of made me think that if my daughter, with all of her problems, which are quite substantial, can be elated to be alive, well, maybe I should be a little more elated to be alive than I've often felt. So I just want to put that out there to you that, resilience can really help you accomplish a lot. So now, this is why you listen to me, because not only do I give you uplifting content, but I also give you some humorous content. So now, one of the drawbacks of resilience. So I'm not saying you shouldn't be resilient. I'm actually arguing that you should embrace resilience. You should fight always for what you want. Because with a couple stories in the news that I'm going to tell you about, you're going to see how far resilience can get you, even if you're a total loser. So remember that concept. Resilience can lead you to success, even if you're a total loser. Consider the case of former Congressman Eric Swalwell. Yes, Eric Swalwell, the California congressman who's not my congressman, but is just one district over. So I'm always seeing stuff about Congressman Eric Swalwell. So it has been revealed that somewhere around 2014, 2015, Congressman Eric Swalwell engaged in an affair with a Chinese national named Fang Fang, who was part of Chinese intelligence. That's right. My local congressman was banging Fang Fang, a communist spy. Did that stop Eric Swalwell from running for Congress? No. Did that stop Congressman Eric Swalwell from getting on the House Foreign Relations Committee? Well, you might say he's got a lot of experience with foreign relations. No, it didn't. Did that stop Eric Swalwell from becoming one of the main accusers against President Donald Trump, claiming that he was a Russian asset? No, it didn't. Did that stop Congressman Eric Swalwell from running for governor of California and in the early pollings taking a substantial lead? No, it didn't. It was only when it was found out that Congressman Eric Swalwell was banging his own staff that suddenly everything fell apart. And there can probably be no greater confirmation of that than former Congressman Swalwell appearing at San Francisco Airport the other day and having all of his communication devices seized by the FBI. So, is Congressman Eric Swalwell likely on the downward slope of his life? Yes, he is. But look how much he accomplished, even though he was banging a communist spy. Now, I don't think many of you out there have been banging a communist spy, but you may have things that fill you with some amount of shame. But ask yourself, did I ever bang a communist spy? No, I didn't. And so therefore, you should move forward with confidence about anything you want to do. Because regardless of what you may or may have not have done, you have never banged a Chinese communist spy like Eric Swalwell, who, except for this recent setback, was probably a good shot at becoming governor of California. And then, after becoming governor of California, would have had a good shot at becoming president of the United States. So, be resilient. See, even if you've done crap that you probably shouldn't have, if you make the choice to be resilient, you can probably go a lot farther than you thought you were going to go. Think about former President Bill Clinton. Did he bang a lot of women that he shouldn't have? Yeah, he did. Was he also a pretty damn good president? Yeah, he was. I'm a conservative. I like things like balanced budgets. Did Clinton deliver a balanced budget? Yes, he did. Did he get us into any stupid wars? Not really. There's a whole thing about Serbia that lasted, 78 days. And yeah, he didn't pay attention to Al Qaeda. But he did a lot of good things. And then we had Bush that got us into the 20-year war on terror. We had Obama, who, I know there's some allegations, but it doesn't seem like there's much in his past. And then we had Donald Trump. And has Donald Trump banged a bunch of women that he probably shouldn't have? Yeah, I'd say probably so. Is Trump doing a lot of good things? Yeah, I think so. I'm one of these crazy guys who is, for the moment at least, giving Trump the benefit of the doubt on the Iran situation. So notice this pattern that if you want to accomplish something, you don't let yourself be stopped. You be resilient, because no matter who you may or may not have banged, there are other things in your life. You are not defined by who you may or may not have banged. You are defined by those things that you accomplish. So, try not to bang the wrong people. But, in a life, things can happen. And so, don't let yourself be stopped. Just move forward in the direction of your dreams, and you will probably accomplish more than you think is possible. So that's my message for today. And hopefully this is not the best part of your day. Hopefully the best part of your day is not listening to some handsome, brilliant guy on the internet. Hopefully the best part of your day is having good relations with those in your life and banging those you should be banging. This is Ken Heckenlively, signing off.